Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. It's about time to get started. So let me share my screen.
Hello, Chet.
Hello.
Hello to everyone. Sorry, I sent it to all the reminder, and I forgot to attach the slides. I'm doing in this moment. Oh no.
I know it's going to be a secret. Holy smokes. Okay. So here we go with the secret, the big X. Here it comes. So today we're going to talk about inventory. What goes up is hard to bring down. I'm sure that all of you at one time or another in your careers have run into the problem. I've got too much of this stuff. So we're going to talk about that today because it's not just you, it's everybody right now. So let's start out where we normally do with what's going on with the pandemic. For those of you who have not been paying any attention, we have a new variant and it's steaming right along. You can see that globally there have been roughly 30 million more people reported infected. But you'll notice also that the deaths from the virus have not gone up. They've gone up 100,000, but as a percentage of how many people are getting the disease and how many are dying, the rate is separating. We're seeing a much lower death rate now. So these new variants move very quickly, but they aren't as they're not wreaking as much havoc on the population as the earlier ones were. So here we've finally gotten the BA.5 variant. It's here in El Paso, and as each of these variants has been listed, they're more easily transmitted than the other variants. The local health department says that they're seeing almost 85% of the people who test positive are testing positive with this variant, and they expect that within the next few days, it'll be 100%. It's no more harmful in its impact than any of the others. In fact, it's probably less so. Fewer people need to go to the hospital. And it's a little bit difficult to tell statistically right now because one of the issues is you've got people who have had COVID before, and so they're getting this and it's not for the first time. So is it less effective or has less effect on them because they've already had it once? Some people have had vaccines. If they're like me, I've got 2 vaccine shots, two extra shots. And so, you know, there's so much difference now in our backgrounds. When we first started tracking the numbers 2.5 years ago, we all had not had it, and so it was much more straightforward. And then it took a while to get the vaccines, and then once the vaccines came in, we could see the impact of the vaccines. So as it goes, it's around. We're still getting it, but this past week I've had 3 friends tell me that they were ill, and none of them had COVID. So there has been a change in my life as far as reporting directly to me. There are fewer people getting COVID, but people are still getting sick because they're not wearing masks and they're going out and they're hanging out with their friends. Well, so the newest point in our slow-moving epic about where is our supply chain now and how are things moving. The latest slow points in moving freight from the ports is being blamed on the trains. Out on the West Coast, the dwell time for trains is up from 8 to 9 days to 12 to 14 days. Now, the reason that this is happening is the train companies have finally realized that there's more to them moving trains than just getting containers in LA and moving them out to the rest of the country. They also have to have trains bringing empty containers back to the West Coast. They have other things that have to be done, and they have other points where they have to move other materials. And they've got East Coast ports that are having similar problems. So the slowdown on the trains is caused by their changes in schedules, and it's causing a buildup of containers at the ports again. So the ports are having the issue of not having enough space for their containers. So they're blaming it on the trains. The trains are managing their schedules to keep everything moving throughout the continent. The Canadian Railway is working with the US railway companies. Ferrocarril out of Mexico is working as well. So it's working. It's just not working as quickly as some people would like. Now we're gonna shift gears here and talk about inventory, and maybe it's moving too quickly for some people. Here at home, the fuel costs are dropping sharply. I saw a gas station Sunday that was at $3.99, and it wasn't a Walmart. It was a Circle K selling gas at $3.99, and that was the higher price. If you had their credit card service, it was $3.89. So it's come down a lot, considering it was almost $5 a gallon just a few short weeks ago. The diesel, I keep my eye on diesel as well. Diesel has also come down, not quite as sharply as gasoline, but the loads for truckers to move are continuing to fall. And so the competitive bidding is out there, and they're still being forced to take contracts at or below cost. And that's happening not just on backhauls, but on primary routes as well. So they're looking for cash in some of their hauls. So you have to look, if you don't have a contract and you're working with an agent, be careful, make sure you understand the cost, because there may be some interesting work being done in the paper side of things. Just check the rates and make sure you're not stepping in a trap. And trucks are still being parked. People are getting out of the trucking business for a while. They're mothballing their trucks and setting them aside because they can't make a profit. Also, to go along with the trains and the trucks, the longshoremen, those are the people that unload the boats, and the ports where the boats have to be unloaded. They're negotiating a new contract because the ports are pushing for more automation so that they need fewer people and they can move 24 hours a day without paying overtime. But that means fewer jobs for the longshoremen. So they are threatening to go on strike. They don't want to lose jobs, because if they lose jobs, they lose power. The union is pushing. The president signed an emergency order. This didn't make it on the news. I don't know why, but the president signed an order last week to keep the rail workers from going out on strike. Remember, we were just talking about the trains? Yeah. So the rail workers were saying, well, if they need us that much, we need to go out. So you've got the longshoremen who are saying, we're going on strike because we're not making enough money. Prices are going up. We want more money. You get the union rail workers saying the same thing. The president stepped in and said, no, you're not going out. And the organizers are out there trying to unionize the owner operators. I find this kind of interesting because the owner operators have always been looked at as sort of a management apart from everything else. And when there's union problems with the trucking industry, Generally, the owner operators are the ones that are called scabs and they're shot at and all the rest of it. And now someone is trying to unionize them so that they can drive more money and keep the owner operators running. Because this is where we're seeing people park their trucks and say, nope, I'm walking away. I'm going to go find something else to do where I can make a little bit more money. So all of this is happening. If you thought you needed a little more excitement this summer, uh, jump online and read some of the news that's out there. There's a lot going on, and none of this has anything to do with the war. So go figure. Oh, and uh, I found this interesting. Just saw a blurb on Bloomberg a week before, I guess it was last week. It was last week. Maersk has leased 3 767 freight carriers. They're airplanes that are just designed to fly freight for 5 years to add additional capacity between China and the U.S. So Maersk is one of the big carriers. They're one of the mega carriers. And if they're investing additional money in to have additional capacity in air freight from China, what does that tell you about what they're thinking is going to be happening with the longshoremen, the ports, and all the rest of this stuff that's going on with transportation in North America? I think it says they want to be on the edge where they can make a lot of money moving freight for companies that need their freight out of China into the US and don't want to wait for ships. Now, China, on the other end of that stick, just opened a new cargo hub last week in a city called Hubei. And it is a freight-only airport. It's very much like the airport in Memphis. Memphis, if you've not been there, one whole part of the Memphis airport is FedEx. UPS is a little bit north of there in Kentucky, but in Memphis, Tennessee, that's where you see FedEx. And so they've taken that same sort of setup and it created a cargo hub in Hubei, and they're going to be able to fly a lot more freight out of there. That was almost simultaneous with Maersk getting their 3 freight carriers for 5 more years. So you can see that there's a lot of money being put into air freight. People think that this is not going to get resolved short term. We're going to be living with these things for some time. Just a quick update on the baby formula. Abbott Labs has still not reopened. We haven't seen it on the news. Why? Because it's not a big news anymore, but it's still news. The formula is being flown in now from Switzerland, Great Britain, and Spain. They prefer Great Britain and Australia because the label is in English. Switzerland has theirs in English, and Spain is putting some stickers on there so that parents can use it if they don't read Spanish. Still a shortage, but it's improving, and more stores are reporting low stock and less reporting outages. So it's starting to shift slowly but surely. The inventory is coming back on the shelves, and the factory isn't even producing yet. So this is all stuff that's being flown in from other countries, which has increased the price. It'll be interesting to see what actions get taken downstream on this. So that brought us to this. Whoa, inventario. The whole thesis today is inventory up. And so we have to say, well, too much of what? Is it finished goods? Is it subassemblies? Is it raw materials? And you may say, well, what does it matter? Well, it matters a whole lot because depending on what it is, we're not going to treat finished goods. The answers to reducing inventory of finished goods is not the same as it is for subassemblies or raw materials. So we have to know where the inventory is up. Well, it's all up. Okay, then we need to break it into pieces and say, what is it we want to do? So we start by saying, who are your customers? who do you sell to? Do you sell to the big box stores, electronics and that kind of thing? Do you sell automobiles? Do you sell, home goods? Do you sell food? Do you sell medical devices? Who are your customers? Because part of the answer to how you're going to reduce your inventory is who's your customer and what's their flexibility. And then who are your suppliers? Because depending on what we've got, we may want to go back to our suppliers and see if there's a way we can restock with them. And so it matters. We need to know where we have too much inventory, what we want to reduce, what level is it for us, and what level is it for our customers, and what about our suppliers? And have we material that we could return to them? So all of this is just at the beginning. How do we do this? So then we look at this and we break it out and we say finished goods. Well, most of us have finished goods and we ship it to somewhere else, but some of us are making components. That's our finished good, and it goes off to an assembly plant and gets assembled into a car or a truck, or it goes to a plant that's making white line, like washers, dryers, refrigerators, those kinds of things. So we may say it's finished goods to us, but it's not finished goods that's going out to the final client. Now, in this area, there are some interesting issues as well. Automobiles, what's been happening is, if you think about the auto assembly plants, they set up and they're going to run X number of cars a day through their assembly. And the general manager of the assembly plant is going to live and die by making that number. And he's got truckloads of raw material coming in to keep at that number. And it's relatively lean, so he's got the right amount of material that's coming in at the right pace. At the same time, he's got all of these cars or trucks or whatever coming off the line, and they have to be distributed. They have to go to ships. They have to go into containers. They have to go on trucks, trains, however they're doing it to move it away. But what's happened is they've said, well, we need to do that, but we've got some models here that we can finish them and move them off the line, but they're not saleable because there are sensors that still need to be put in place. There are chips that still need to be put in place. So they're finished, and we count them as finished, and we've consumed 99% of the material, but they're not saleable. And here comes the issue. Because let's say you're Ford and you're making F-150 pickup trucks, and you've got all of your 2022 models, and a lot of them are sitting there and they're not saleable. And now you're going to start getting chips in 2 months. How many of those are going to be saleable, and how much is it going to be worth? Because in 2 months, we're going to be in September, and what happens? The 2023 models start to come out. In 3 months, they're going to be old cars. They're going to be a year old. They're not the current model, and the current model's out there. So what's going to happen? The value of those finished vehicles, they claimed them at full cost when they came off the line, but they're not going to get full profit. So there's going to be some sorting out here through the automobile industry with them taking losses. It may not be loss to the bottom line. I mean, it'll be reductions, and it may not be a loss, but they may take losses as well. What about if you have technical products? You're making different devices, or you're making different things that require technical equipment, and it's an advancing market that's constantly changing. These parts are still marketable, but are you going to be able to put them out there, and will they be able to sell? What's your competition offering at this point? And is your competition ahead of you or behind you? And how are they doing? Because you may have the products, they may be done. Are they going to be marketable and saleable in months to come? And then we have stable products. things like healthcare products, food, those kinds of things. And there's been slowdowns in those marketplaces as well. And so inventory is building up. Is there date coding? Because if there's date coding, we need to make sure that we're moving date coded product out to get it out as quickly as possible. Or can we hold it and requalify the material, put a different date stamp on it, and ship it out? Some companies and some products you can do that. Food is not, you pretty much can't do that. But if you've got devices that are going to be sterilized and they're completely packaged and everything, hold off and don't put your date codes on them until they're ready to go and you know that they're going to go straight through and out. You're holding them at an intermediate state, but it will give you more shelf life once they clear your docks. So think about that. How are you going to approach that, and what do you need? And you may want to sit down and talk to your sales and marketing team and get some insights from them on what can be done with the finished goods that you have. Now, if you've got sub-assemblies, will they be used in next year's products? If they will, put them in storage. We're going to use the same stuff. We're just adding this little gizmo. We're adding this, and okay, so put them in storage, but make sure that the quality is correct and that the quality isn't going to deteriorate with them sitting there. There are many products that we make that will be the case. And so we can just put these things aside. Now, that's not reducing your inventory, but you're not building finished goods with it. So it's out of the way and it doesn't change the value. If you build it up to finished goods, you're adding more cost to it. And if it's not going to sell, it's going to be a bigger problem for you financially. So leave them at that level and put them in storage. If there's no future use, what about spares and service parts? Can you use them for that? Are there other uses for this part? Is there something else that can be done? Go to your design engineering group and say, what else could we do with this? It seems to me like we could hook it up to something else. If we hook it up to this and this is the product we've been selling, what about if we put it into something else? Is there something else we could do with this? Or is there engineering change that can be done to convert this into something that we need? Can we take something away from it, add something to it, modify it, tune it differently that would allow us to convert it into a different product that has demand that we can use? And then if none of that works, then can we cannibalize it? Is there, we built these things up. There are some pieces in there that have gold, others that have titanium, others that have other semi-precious metals. Can we cannibalize those, take that metal out, sell that, and write it off? So you can do that. What that does is it frees up some cash by if you've got gold or if you've got those other metals, and you can get them out fairly cheaply, then you can sell that material and make some money on it. And you take the product at a loss and you show the improvement in the sale of the materials. Now, sometimes what happens is we buy these materials and they're already processed, but there's been a change in the marketplace. Gold has gone up a bunch, or platinum has gone up a bunch. And so by cannibalizing, we can almost break even on the process. So something to think about. You don't want to do it. That's not necessarily your first choice, but it's one of those things you have to keep it on the table, because if you can cannibalize and make some money back, it's better than just taking the stuff, taking it to the dump, throwing it away, and taking all of that as a loss. Remember, a reduction in inventory with no income is straight loss. It's a reduction in assets on your balance sheet, and that ultimately costs you money. Components. First step I always suggest is, can you negotiate a return to vendor? Does your vendor need them? Or is your vendor willing to take them back and restock? Normally, when they do this, if you've got a good relationship with them, they'll give you 85%, somewhere on that, plus you do the shipping back to them. So you'd be losing maybe 20% on the value of the parts, and then ultimately you're going to have to buy them back, and that's going to cost you. But that's better than taking them, throwing them in the dump, and taking 100% loss. So getting some back better than getting none back. Are there other customers for these parts? You look around and you say, okay, who else might buy these? Who else uses them? And if you've got a good relationship with your supplier, ask. The worst they can say is, we're not going to share that information with you. Okay, that's fine. Let me go see what I can find out, and go look at your competition and say, are you buying from these people? How would you like to buy parts out from me, and I'll sell them to you a little bit cheaper? Will these be used in new products? We've got these component parts. Will we be able to use them in new products? So that we don't want to get rid of them, we want to keep them, and we want to hold on to them. Again, cannibalization is an option here, and recycling is an option. Send them out to a recycler, and perhaps if you're selling in volume, you can get some money back from the recycler. And then we have raw materials. If we've got commodities, you've got copper, you've got aluminum, you've got plastic resins, you can offer these for sale and perhaps make a profit. If somebody out there wants them, but they can't buy at the same rate you can buy, you can sell them at a rate slightly lower than they're paying on the open market, but higher than what you're paying, and you can make a small profit on the sale. So think about doing that. Are there other uses for this material? We bought it to do X, but can we do Y? Can we do Z? Can we do E and A? What other uses might there be? Can we use it in other processes? Or are there other customers that we might develop where we could sell this material, or we could sell products using this material? So all of these are open for us to go out and look at. And you say, well, we don't have a lot of time, Chet. The pressure's on. We need to get, yeah, I understand that. But you need to look at this as something that's not going to go away in the next week or two. This is going to be with us for some time. So start thinking longer term. You can get rid of some stuff, it'll go away in a heartbeat, but there's other stuff that you're not going to be able to move that quickly. So start your planning and think this through. Each of you has a different set of issues. Each of you will come up with a different set of answers. But these are some guidelines, some ideas on how to go about the questioning process and come up with a better idea overall. Remember, we talked about postponement, and that's been sort of a badge of honor here in distribution for the last few years. So start looking at postponement. Don't make products that won't sell quickly. If you're building products now and they're going to sell by the end of the year, if you don't need them right away, hold off. Don't raise the cost, because what you're doing when you're manufacturing is you're raising the cost at every level. And if you hold it as raw materials, that's the lowest cost to you. And as much as you can hold at raw material level, you're better off from a financial standpoint. Now, you don't want to miss your schedules, but keep your materials at the lowest possible level, and then work in this meantime to improve your process throughput, which will shorten your lead time so that when you do have to turn it on, you can turn it on and get the product out quickly. Okay, we got 1 minute to go. So the questions that we always have are, what would you like to discuss? And I noticed today that Deanna has created a hurdle for you to get to this meeting, and you have to give us suggestions, and we appreciate that. And we looked at some of them yesterday, last evening, And we'll be looking at them again in the next week, and we'll include those in next month's APICS for lunch. Thank you so much for coming out. Hope that this has been good for you. And I look forward to seeing all of you 1 month from now. Enjoy.
Thank you, Chet.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thanks, Chet.
Thank you.
Thank you.